Before we start with that, I'm just going to give you some feedback on assignment 1. Hopefully all of you've gone through your assignment 1s and saw the feedback that I gave there, and please use that information to build on that assignment in your assignment 2. One thing that I could see in the assignments, there was everyone focused more or less on their background and on different things. For instance, some focused more on the technical details of the assignments and lacked a little bit on the theory, comparing it to Cook and Williams and comparing it to other sources. And the main thing that I wanted to see was that you could compare what should happen theory-wise and what is actually happening. Then the second thing that I picked up is that the data and the information on site wasn't scrutinized thoroughly enough. The second point, together with the first point that I just mentioned on assignment 1, was basically getting I want you to go through what they actually do on site. You need to show me what you've learned on site, and that I saw was lacking in many of the tasks, that the things that you actually learned on site wasn't conveyed nicely into the task. If you need to use photos to explain the project to me, please feel free to do so. The main thing is I need to get a clear picture of that you actually understand what's going on site. But saying that, there was a couple of nice tasks that I did receive, which was very nice and insightful, and very interesting projects. So please keep it up, and yeah, let's build on it in assignment 2. So in assignment 2, identify a construction project that will run for more than 4 months and obtain the necessary permissions from the construction company to visit the site at least once a week. Please explain to the owner of the construction company what the task requires. So the main thing is you can use your previous project, or you can use your a site that you are current or that you have been assigned to recently. But it's always easier just to use the old project because you've got some information available already. So it's up to you which site you're going to use. But the main thing is you need to be critical of it so that you can actually answer the following questions. So for task 2, use the same site that you use for task 1. So that's a guideline, like I just said, and compile a comprehensive financial report to your company boss with the specific focus of the following areas. Okay, so how was the project obtained? Was it a tender? Was it a direct appointment? Was there negotiations that happened? I really want the ins and outs of it. What type of contract was used when you obtained it? Was it an open tender? Is it an ad hoc appointment? Is it a JBCC contract? If it can even be a proxa agreement, if it's like a consultancy type of appointment, whatever, ad hoc appointment, if it's an NHBRC appointment. I really want you to see what your company do to actually obtain this project. You might work for a developer which might create their own work. You might work for a contractor where out of a previous project you actually got this project. But really, don't just give me a 1 or 2 liner on this. I want to see your insight. What can you learn out of this whenever you get into the field? How are you going to obtain a project? Okay, and then question B is what type of contract is used? Okay, so I've addressed that already. What type of pricing method was used? Okay, if it's open tender, was there bills of quantities? What type of bills of quantities also? If you're working on a civil project, was it a sands measurement project, and did you have to compile the quantities yourself, where you're appointed on a square meter rate? Again, I need you to show me the insight into this project. How was it done? Did you price a per square meter and you had to develop your own schedule of quantities, bills of quantities? How was it obtained? What did you have to do afterwards to actually make this project work? Okay, then compile a program indicating the critical path. So that's a standard thing. You should have learned that in CPOR in the previous year, and also throughout the study notes we've touched on that already. Okay, in project management you also touch on the critical path. Then choose 3 specific items in your program, e.g. your foundations, and compile a comprehensive method statement for the particular project. These items should be an item from your first, second and third thirds of your project. And I've explained that in the workshops. Is basically I want you to have a item in your first portion of your project, in the middle portion, and the end, like your finishes and so on. I want you to be able to give me a breakdown of how you actually compile the amount or the rate that you're going to use. And I don't just want a bill rate, I want you to actually compile a rate build up for that item. And also, how is this item going to be staggered? How's the cash flow going to work on this item? For instance, your strip footing might go over more than 2 months, because if you've got sections, you might do a first section this month and a second section in the second month, wait for it to cure, pour your concrete, that type of thing. Anything that's on your program, I want you to show how that cash flow is going to work. Then from the method statement compiled in D, compile a cash estimate cost and time for that item using the principle, this principle, and compile a comprehensive forecast for your cash flow. You do not have to show the rest of the items. So you're showing me 3 specific items in detail, how you worked out the projected cash flow, and now you're going to apply that to all your other items. So you're going to compile a comprehensive cash flow for the entire project. Okay. Complete your projected expenditure cash flow. Okay, and then compile a projected cash inflow. When will you receive your inflow of your cash flow? By relating it to your price document. Highlight where your most challenging section of your project would be cash flow wise, and indicate how you would overcome this challenge. So you're working towards your working capital basically. So in these questions I'm guiding you towards that, so please be mindful of that. And again, like always, if there's questions, you can always ask me or email me with regard to that. Okay. So in unit 6 we're going to look at chapter 6 and 18 of Cook and Williams, and we're going to have an informal 6 on these two. We already did chapter 18 previously, so you can go through chapter 18. I'm just going to go through the theory of chapter 6. Just be mindful, here's a bit of a typo. This should be actually chapter 6. I hope I can make it. Okay, it looks like a 6. This is a 6 if you're wondering. So just go through that. So what we're going to look at in this unit, we're going to look at the supply chain integration, lean construction, fast track construction, subcontractors, types of contractors and types of subcontractors, the management of and procurement thereof, and work package deals, forms of contract, and the construction industry schemes. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on all of these items, so it's crucial that you go through the handbook and read through chapter 6 with regard to it. The following slides is only a guideline on that and only briefly touches on it. Okay, so your supply chain integration is the construction industry forms short-term project teams. Okay, so you come together and then you go out of each other again. So some clients have established preferred service providers, people that they've worked with before, that they trust, and it's just easier if you know how someone else operates, if you have certain service providers. Usually it's not an option. Contractors and subcontractor relationships can however be built over time. So sometimes you don't have a choice. If, for instance, if you've got a nominated subcontractor from the client side, you cannot choose that anyone, or if a architect specifies a specific item to be installed, for instance. Okay, then you've got lead and poor quality leads, lead times and poor quality also influences your relationship between your supply chain. Designers rely on specialists, however the contractor may choose a different supplier if not nominated. So sometimes, especially with developers, the client has a relationship with someone already, but if you can maybe, if the developer is maybe not from there, then it might be a thing of you suggesting a someone reputable in that area also. Then you have smaller, more informed supply chains, maybe the answer. In a small community, I know in Bloemfontein, it's a small construction community, and there's only a couple of suppliers, for instance, for aluminium installations. So you will only go to the 4 or 5 suppliers in town. Main contractors, if you're looking for finishing, you would go to a certain contractor. If you're looking for a quick build, you would go to another contractor. If you're looking for price, you might go to another contractor. So it really depends on your area that you're working in, who you will invite to tenders and so on. Okay, from the top, firms adopt the following: fewer and better clients. Okay, so what some larger firms try and do is they try and establish a long-term relationship and work with certain clients that can actually fulfill their needs, and then they try, rather than doing bulk attempts of getting work, they rather do their work or less work but more of a better quality. So they build up a relationship like that with their clients. Fewer and better suppliers and subcontractors, the same thing is you do not necessarily use the same plumbers every time. You might use only 3 or 4 plumbers depending on how busy they are. Also a thing of building a relationship. Large contractors may have between 5,000 and 15,000 suppliers. So let that sink in a little. If you need to manage 15,000 suppliers, different suppliers, keep track of them, how was their previous work, did they supply the material on time, how was the price, and so on. So it can become quite difficult to keep track of it. Then another thing to remember is consider having a source, having to source new supplies every time you go out on tender. So that's another thing that you can think about. If you build up a relationship with your suppliers, and now suddenly you have to go out and get new supplies each time, you have to reinvent the wheel again, build up a new relationship again. So it is a bit counterproductive if you go out or get in new suppliers each time, even if it's cheaper maybe, but obviously it depends on how much time you have. Okay, so lean construction is a concept developed by the Toyota production system, and we're going to look at that. It's mainly focused on eliminating the waste from the production cycle and it adds value to the supply chain. it's a thing of just in time production, not having too much material on site. It's delivered usually a day or two before it's actually installed, and thus you do not have to have a big site to store all the material. You also do not have to have to pay for storage containers and so on for prolonged periods. It also means that the risk is also transferred to the supplier and the transport thereof. Obviously, it's not always that practical, especially if you've got lead times from different suppliers and you do not know whether they're going to have enough stock within a month or two. It might be a challenge to order or to manage this. One way of overcoming this is to order material that it sits in their storerooms and that they only deliver it the day or two before the time. But it also, another risk is whether you are on time to actually install the items. Okay, so rethinking construction describes the Toyota production system. So the main focus of this is they could eliminate non-value activities like moving around material from one side of the site to the next side, cleaning it, keeping it nice and clean, and it actually they could save about 90% of all of these activities. Then removal of waste from all activities. Establishment of relationship with the members of the supply chain was key to making this a success. Removal of delays in design and production. Okay, and then lean thinking, for instance, off-site manufacturing, pre-manufacturing, pre-assembly and supply chain integration, etc. is all items that works towards lean construction. Okay, so please go through this section in your handbook for more information on this. So fast-track construction, today many clients require fast-track construction because many clients, whenever the money is approved, they want to try and make up their money as quickly as possible, because otherwise they have to pay the bond costs and etc. etc. Or if it's public enterprises, then that money should be spent between a certain financial year or so. That's why fast tracking is sometimes so important. Okay, so you have a demand procurement method which overlaps design, tendering, and construction have to emerge, so or merged. So the main thing is, while you're designing, you're already looking at procurement of certain sections. For instance, the drawings might not be complete yet, and you have to develop bills of quantities. I've had to do that quite a bit, where you have to draw up a bills of quantities. It becomes provisional because the designs isn't done, and during the appointment of the contractor, the designs is only finalized. Okay, but also fast-track construction by using innovative procurement methods, industrialization of the construction process, and work packages contracts can also be used. So you can use all of these innovative methods. What we've done on certain projects is we actually in the tender document, we moved some of the design responsibilities towards the contractor. For instance, if it's a big mechanical installation, the mechanical supplier and installer actually does the design and the installation of the works, which so you've got work packages like that you just manage. So the advantages are overlapping of work packages with both in the design and the construction, less duplication, effort and waste, less uncertainty and inefficiency. Innovative construction is used, incorporating new technologies, more emphasis on standardization, modularization, etc. So for instance, you would probably learn from previous projects and you saw what worked, and then that is applied on a new project, leaving a certain amount of flexibility for the design to be tweaked for whenever it actually comes to that part of the project. Okay, then fast track construction continued is high standards of planning is needed, organization and control is needed. Obviously with this type of projects, things has to be planned beforehand, and everything has to be right the first time. Unfortunately, with this type of construction, as soon as you've made a mistake, it has a ripple effect on other following items. Characteristics of open and honest dealings to improve buildability: involve first tier suppliers early on. Reduction in lead times through pre-orders is very important. Arrange direct supply of materials with repeat clients. Okay, clients who actually knows what you want. You don't have to get samples and so on beforehand, for instance, but you've got a relationship with these suppliers. Then you've got your different subcontractors, and I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, although you should go into this in detail. Is, for instance, your domestic subcontractors, the ones that you appoint. For instance, your electrical contractor, your plumbing contractor, etc., etc. The ones that forms part of your company, whose health and safety file falls underneath your health and safety file, that type of thing. Okay, so and then you've got your nominated subcontractors, usually with your provisional sums in your tender documents. A contractor is nominated, and together with the contractor, they're appointed. Named and listed subcontractors, this is a little bit more like your selected contractors that we know of, but read through this. And then you've got work packages, which I'll explain a little bit later. And then you've got your labor only contractors, which we do have in South Africa quite a lot. Is your labor contractors, where a subcontractor only brings in their labor to do certain sections of the project. Obviously, this also moves the risk from you to someone else. Okay, then we've got the types of subcontractors, management procurement type. So you've got your trade contractors, which might be paid by your client directly. And then you've got your work contractors paid directly by the management contractor. Okay, and then I'm going to explain this a little bit more now in the next few slides. So, but also please remember to go through these in your handbook. Okay, so let's look at our work packages. Work packages is the management contractor becomes part of the design team. Okay, so you've got your managing contractor. It's usually on big technical builds. You get the contractor in together with the design team. If the design team doesn't necessarily have all the expertise to do the entire design. A workable budget is produced by the QS. So okay, so you've got a budget only, and then the interfaces may lead to some exclusions of contractors. So negotiated skills is very important to the construction project manager. If you're in this situation, you might be on either side of the fence. You might be on the side of the managing contractor, or you might be on the side of the client. So you need to use your discretion and your expertise to actually get to the most efficient solution for your client. And then the final packages budgets are set, and then the contractor produces these packages within the total project envelope. There are, however, some standard procedures we have to look at. So let's have a look. So you've got your client brief on this side. You've got your architect that does a basic design. You've got your structural engineer or civil engineer that looks at certain items and see how it will work. Then you've got your managing contractor on this side, and then your QS consultant, and then your service consultant on this side. So the service consultant is usually like a QS maybe, or someone that looks at the contract and so on. So, and then you've got your contractor who actually does the final design. So you've got your subcontractors, quantity surveyor responsible for subcontracting documentation, etc. So you've got a subcontractor that maybe does the plumbing design also, and then all of those packages is put together to get to a cost budget, and that's agreed between the quantity surveyor and your service consultant. Okay, and then the client signs that agreement. And then your subcontractor work packages schedules is developed, and then the project is implemented, and so on. Okay. Okay, so the information required is basically the following. Your work package budgets are more or less divided into the following. Before starting with the procurement, lead-in times have to be evaluated. Your typical key dates is given on page 111, so please have a look there. And you've got just one uncooperated member can let the pack of cards tumble. So it's very dependent on everyone trying to find the best solution for this project. If someone is greedy and doesn't want to work together, then that might cause a bit of a hampering. So what will happen is, for instance, you've got your subcontractor that's going to look at your foundations. So you've established your budget, and you've established that you're going to remeasure all of the work. You've got some standard rates that you will apply, for instance your excavations and so on, but the quantities isn't final yet. So during the actual work, you measure your actual quantities and you try and show a saving there. Okay, same with your drainage, car parks. Here they actually measured it a little bit more, and you get to your a little bit extra spent here. So very important, everyone has to play open cards whenever they do work on projects like this. So it's a very key factor. Okay, so this just shows you a very simple way of how it's done. Your normal projects might work like this also. If you've got remeasurement or provisional bills, it will work in a similar way than this. Okay, so also have a look at figure 6.3 for some more information on this. Okay, so your typical arrangements for these subcontractors work packaging selections is basically the same as whenever you're doing a normal standard procurement. You select your subcontractors, you list your 6 subcontractors, you question your 6 subcontractors, you do a financial check, visit some current projects, interview 4 subcontractors, you issue tender documentation to 4 subcontractors, the tenders are checked, interview the 2 lowest ones, see if they're going to play ball or not, and then appoint a subcontractor in agreement with the team. So very simple. It's a bit of a negotiation type of shortlist method that's used. So this is more or less how work packages work whenever you're doing your procurement. Okay, so that's more or less it for chapter 6. Like I said, if there's any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me.